Midweek update from downtown Jefferson City at the state capitol during the extraordinary session. I'm Scott Faughn, the host of This Week in Missouri Politics. We'll give you the update. So, special sessions are an odd thing. Most of the time, like in a scenario, right? You have an issue, like a factory's going to come, so you have to expand Missouri Works or something, or like when Boeing or whatever. Everybody gets together, decides what they're going to do, they go do it. Well, then you have other special sessions. This one was a little different because of the veto. You knew it was coming. So before you could actually announce that there was going to be but when you announced the veto, which had a deadline, you announced a special session, so you couldn't have a deal yet. Interesting week. Big week for the Senate. You had Andrew Caney and Lincoln Huff, two guys you don't normally put together, but two probably. As far as the two wings of the Senate go, probably the most respected members on each wing, right? As far as on fiscal policy, they came together, and for all the talk of it's going to be a new day, well, it really wasn't a new day. You saw Senator Moon appeal to the chair and some of those things, right? So I don't know about the new day. However, you did see how a path forward, and the path forward was Senator Caney and Senator Huff, two guys that I don't think they're enemies or anywhere like that. Just maybe not your two guys that were the closest. You didn't see them co-sponsoring a lot of bills together, but they came together, negotiated something. They both get on the floor, have a very good exchange. The Republican part of the perfection took, I don't know, like Senator Onder. It was his. He wanted to share his views about some things, which was, good. But really, it was really just some introduction of bills and some concepts. On the perfection of the bill, they spoke. It was over, no problem. The Democrats spoke a couple hours. But look, it's a tax cut. They didn't filibuster. They just did a couple hours. No, and it raised some fine points. The fact is, the state of Missouri's revenue is up a little. It's not up $1 billion. The federal government borrowed money from China and sent it to Jeff City. That's why their revenues are up. It's not as though our state's revenue is shut off the map $1 billion. The federal government in China said, "Can we borrow your money?" And then they gave it here. I'm all for spending it or whatever, but some of the points the Democrats are making are not. They're very whether you come to the conclusion they come to or not, they are very much grounded in reason and logic. That said, the real interesting part came in how this all went down in the House. The House very coy. I don't even think they tell their members what they're going to do until that's on the floor. Probably, I don't even know. But House members are supposed to be treated like that by leadership. So if your Uber driver treated you that way, you wouldn't stand for it. But you're not a House Republican, so there you are. So they decide that they got their own way. They want to do a tax cut. I don't know. The truth of the matter is, none of us were really here for the Carter inflation. So now we're here for the Biden inflation, and it's hard to make projections. The tax cut could be $2 billion. It could be $700 million. They know down to about $800 to $1.2 billion. But the fact is, if the economy is better and inflation gets under somewhat of control, then the tax cut will be bigger. If the economy's worse and inflation still flies out of control, the tax cut will be bigger. If they get inflation under control and the economy's bad, the tax cut will be small. That's just kind of the way it is. If you're dealing with projections on future stuff, I guess it would just be, who would you trust to be your financial advisor, Lincoln Huff or Rob Vescovo? I guess that would kind of be maybe the real question. So here's the dynamics. Here's the politics. Let's get into the politics here. Maybe a little Stein of knowledge sip here. From one of my old ones, one of the first Steins. This is making a second appearance here on the side of knowledge, going back for 4 years since we've been doing these. Buddy Tim from Belton gave me that back in the day. Very grateful. As we're here, we've got the House takes up. They take up the ag bill. I don't know exactly why, but they had plenty of votes for this, right? Then you had the Democrats didn't get to offer any amendments or anything. So the House took the Senate's language and they put their House bill and made it exactly like the Senate bill. Now, this is done for two reasons. One, House members like them to be House bills. Senators don't really care that often, but House members want stuff to be House bills. So it's just a difference. It's not a new thing. It's kind of a long time. It means a lot to a House member for it to be a House bill. Senators don't care that much. That's just the general rule. There's exceptions, but that's pretty much the rule. The other part is now there's two bills out there. This was the House's way. They want a different kind of tax cut. They think they know more about tax policy than Lincoln, Huff, Andrew Caney, Governor Parson. They've got their own way to do it. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. No. But it's different. And the ag bill, you have the Senate who wants the ag bill. You have Don Roan who wants the ag bill. You have Dean Blocker. If we could only get rural Republicans to care as much about half as much about rural Missouri as we do Dean Blocker, we'd be so much better off. If we could get rural Republicans to only vote for people in leadership like Dean Blocker, we'd be so much better off. So much better off. I just don't understand why rural people are self-hating hillbillies. We just hate ourselves, and we vote for people that screw us and tell us they're going to screw us. Then they vote for people in leadership. The leadership guy says, I will screw rural Missouri every chance I get. And they're like, oh, that sounds great. My district is rural Missouri. That sounds dope. I've never understood. So the Senate wants they're pretty proud of their tax cut. Pretty well done. I mean, you're seeing most everybody, even your right-wingy goofball groups to business groups, to serious people are like, okay, if we're going to do a tax cut, it's a little big, but okay, fair enough. Then you got the House that's like, pew, 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 we don't care. We're going to arm fetuses and the whole 9 yards. So it's better when the guns and abortion chamber does guns and abortion. When they try to do other stuff, it doesn't go as well. So this is not guns and abortion, although they probably could find a way to make it guns and abortion. And the ag bill, they take an ag bill, pass the same ag bill, but as a House bill, send it back over. Now, what this is meant to do is create a scenario by which the speaker will go play a couple senators for fools if they're dumb enough to play along, and you never know, and try to get them to filibuster and kill it and say you have to take our tax cut along with to get your ag bill. And if you do that, that's fine, no problem. Well, then, so you're trying to box Caleb Rowden, the Republican leader. So Caleb Rowden, he has a bill, right, that ag bill. I got a text asking about a Republican. I'm from rural Missouri. I'm not quite sure what that makes me anymore. I'm a Republican like a Curtis Gregory, like a Dean Blocker. I'm not as much an uber Republican. To answer your question, thanks for the text, by the way. The truth is, I think what there's different options here. So what you're going to do is the speaker. This isn't House leadership. The speaker will go to rural Republicans who want a more responsible tax cut. Right? They want a more conservative tax cut. One that cuts a little now, protects the debt, the AAA bond rating, moves forward like you would in business, and come back and maybe cut taxes later. But they want the ag bill. They want the ag bill probably more than they want to beat a tax cut that's too big. So what the speaker go to is say, you have to pass our even bigger tax cut bill, and we'll pass the Senate's ag bill. And there's some folks that think Representative Roan, who is very well respected in the House chamber, has a very good relationship with the speaker. They think that out of deference to him, ultimately they would come back in and just pass the Senate's ag bill. They said they haven't even sent it to committee yet. The House could have sent that thing to committee today and voted on it. Really, I mean, there's people talking about rules. Many times the House has changed it, has exceeded the rules in a special session and make it a one-day deal. That is very normal. They just didn't want to. Plus, there's some folks that say, well, some members in the House leadership probably could use the per diem check. So having as many technical sessions and regular session days probably is something they'd be for. They're probably right, but even so. So right now, the Senate's got a couple options here. I assume the House comes in next week and passes a ginormous tax cut, right? All the W-2 Republicans will get together and put out their own tax cut. And maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but it's depending on, well, your experience and how many stars you have as an Uber driver. But then so the Senate could come in, and I mean, to me, you basically, if you're Caleb Rowden and you want to box in and you want to play the Senate game, you come in, you put the ag bill on the floor, you pass it. You take the House ag bill, you throw it through ag, and you pass the thing, and then you shoot the hostage. Then the rural Republicans probably take your tax cut in the House, and there you go. And if the Speaker doesn't want to do it, you just say, okay, well, let's just negotiate with Dean Blocker. We'll get the ag thing done and move on. To me, you want to, if someone just hates rural Missouri, make them get on the floor and say, I think rural Missouri sucks, and we should just get rid of it, right? But I think they've already passed the ag bill once. I think they'll pass it again, right? Because there'll be real people making real good notes of who would be so irresponsible to play with the lives of Missouri farmers. So I think if Senator Rowden's brought the bill up, the ag bill and passed, he shoots the hostage and says, you've got a tax cut, send us the tax cut. Maybe we can negotiate, but we're not playing this game. And then the rural Republicans in the House would no longer have this held over their head to have to vote for the House's, the Speaker's tax cut over the tax cut that Candy and Huff put together. That gives them all the room in the world. The other thing you could see, it's probably the other hardball move, is you get Senators Candy, Huff, and Rowden and just start negotiating with Dean. The one thing politicians hate, the one thing they hate in their soul, the thing they can't stand is irrelevancy. It's like a Cubs fan to Jack Buck. He just couldn't, they can't handle it. And you watch it too, you're sort of having implications of what that House Budget Committee looks like next year. And I'm telling you, the longer you get into this, what will happen is if the Senate passes the ag bill, all the pressure. Right now, they've tried to box the Senate in a little bit. If they just take up and pass the ag bill and go home, signing die seems a lot, but just pass it and go home and say, well, you've not passed our bill. You've not even sent it to committee, our tax bill. You haven't sent us a tax cut bill, fine. We're going to go back to our jobs, which is something you would have a hard time relating to. Call us if you get something, or call us when you passed it. So I think that's kind of the back and forth. The options are pretty simple. Could the Speaker get a senator to be his dupe, which very few senators would actually be a water boy for the House. Some would. I just don't know, especially on a deal that if you're in the camp of Caleb Rowden's camp, are you going to really say I'd rather go with the House than Lincoln? And if you're in the conservative cause, are you going to say, I think Andrew Cade's not that bright. I'd rather go with the House. I just don't. I think that's going to be harder to get done. Possible. You could find a water boy over there for him. Boy, though, I mean, your Senate reputation is not going to be great if you're just a houseman with a bigger office. Start off on PQs next or something. It'll be interesting. I did notice there was some interesting votes. You could go back and look and see where Patterson Hafner is the big race coming up for the House floor leader. I wonder how they voted. But I don't know how Mike Hafner voted on the Act bill. Then you've got Tracy McCreary, big time, very. She's not gonna get done. Tracy McCreary today was a Senate candidate, and I think very wise. If I had to guess how she played her hand, which you would expect nothing less from someone who's going to be a fantastic senator. Wes Rogers, of course, Wes. Geez, he's the man. But look, I don't know why they didn't recognize the Democrats let him offer amendments. Just vote him down. Vote him down. Let him offer him, vote him down. I don't really know what that was about. So the Democrats weren't, I heard not allowed to talk, but I knew they were allowed to talk because I listened to part of it. I guess they couldn't offer an amendment. I'm not really sure what that was about, to be honest with you. But they were put out by it, so all but 3 Democrats voted no. The bill passed with 83 votes. I thought Representative Shaw did a good job recognizing Representative Rohn to let him talk one more time and finish his comments. So we'll see. I mean, you in the House, They're going to come up with their own tax cut, which is their right to do, of course. I mean, as they should. And they're going to try to leverage some members to vote for it that might not vote for it by holding the ag bill as their hostage. Senator Rowden could shoot the hostage. Then, if that happens, then all the pressure goes back. You've got a speaker who's taking his job, be quasi kind of lobbyist, Club for Growth, which will in January, if he takes a job, he knows a Club for Broke. He can leverage over their heads. You take the leverage away. My gut tells me that you take that leverage away, and I think those House guys, maybe they vote for the Senate tax cut. I don't know. Maybe they vote for a lower. I don't really know what they'll do. But it'll be interesting to watch. And and if that's the case, and if they can't get the House to negotiate with them, the baller move is you get Kennedy and Huff together with Dean Blocker and just start saying, well, 3 months, we'll just do this. That will be the true stroke move. But we'll see. I would say it comes down to, does the speaker already have a secretary who's a senator to run errands for him? That possibly could be, but that person is going to take a long time to live down a bill you just passed. Then you're going to go back and do House errand boy stuff. That will be it'll be one of those things that not that many people say out loud, but when you walk through, everybody's going to be like, "There's a little house boy." That will be hard to live down amongst your colleagues. But maybe they're persuasive. Maybe they, for Uber or something, figure out how to make it work. But then if you're the Senate, you just get the ag bill done. Then there's nothing to leverage, and then I'll bet you get your tax cut that you want. And then if you don't, you just go get it, set it up with Blocker you can negotiate with. It's not some kind of maze of paranoia, and just figure it out. I bet that deal will take about 2 hours. So we'll see. But they could lock up here. That could totally happen. There could be a lockup. I think the speaker's betting on his members just folding. He voted against Rule Missouri, by the way. Interesting. Curtis Trent flipped his vote. He flip-flopped on it. I was surprised by that. Curtis Trent's a very serious lawmaker. He's going to be a very good senator. Surprising to me that he flip-flopped like that. That's not what I would expect from him. It's not in keeping with the kind of legislator he's been since the day he arrived. That was odd. I saw Representative Coleman. She voted with Arnold over Festus, against Festus. I saw Nick Shore. He voted with St. Louis. He's got defiance in the district, wine country. Of course, Rusty Black, he's from Missouri. He's, great guy. So it says that. So I would just doubt that, though. You'd want to go over your first day and filibuster that, and they had to do the ag bill in January. We'll see. Be interesting. But it just goes back to Republicans. You either have to decide, are you from rural Missouri, or are you going to continue to put rural Missouri in peril by putting people from the suburbs in leadership that just don't care about rural Missouri? So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, I do think at the end of the day, and this could be a month from now, Don Roan could probably get that thing brought up and passed. I do think that people, you saw today at the end, and I think, if the House would have just went to the Senate bill to take up and TFP it, and just ran it through their committee and put it on I don't think the Democrats would have been mad about not offering amendments or not getting heard or whatever. But the fact they did it this way, they lost some votes. If they just brought the Senate bill up, they probably could pull them back in. Interesting days here in your state capital. It is very, very much a where you from and do you give a damn about the people where you're from. And you'll find, again, I go back to the moral of the story today, the moral of the story for the week, big week for the Senate. You saw exactly how the Senate could blow up with appealing the chair on points of order on this the personal petty stuff. And you saw exactly how the Senate could work with guys like Huff and Katie compromising. Who would have thought? Compromising. You saw the House I mean, it is what it is. It's definitely a hardball game, which if that works, good, right? You can't blame people for doing things that work. But you definitely saw a house that just, I mean, just you got help is on the way. 3.5 months from now, you will actually have a person that cares. And the code word for the week, the true matter here is, if you're from St. Louis, you trust me, everybody's looking out for you, no problems. If you're from rural Missouri, what I think you have to ask yourself is, does your representative care half as much about your community as Dean Plocker does? If you're from Sedalia, you can say yes. If you're from Warrensburg, you can say yes. If you're from some other places, the answer is no. God, no. You don't give a damn. If you're from Waynesville, you can say yes. If you're not, you should ask yourself, what are you there for, right? I mean, that might be the move. But the question would be, does your legislator care half as much about you as Dean Plocker does? Because, I mean, seriously, Dean Plocker is the absolute one of the last best things the Republican Party has for rural Missouri. That's just the truth. That Dean Plocker is one of the few lifelines rural Missouri has, and without him, the Uber drivers would run us flat out of the state. With that, Lincoln Hupp is the guest on the show. Outstanding panel. We have the guy, every Missouri Republican dad wants their son to grow up and be Curtis Gregory. Oh, one of my favorites. We don't get to do a debut that I'm stoked about. Jamie Berger, Common Sense from the Boot Heel is on. Then Carrie Engel, Rising Star. I don't know if there's anybody in politics in the legislature whose star has risen faster. If you look at the success Tracy McCreary is reaping this summer and fall, it's built on a House career like today, of pragmatic decisions that were kind of gutsy when she needed it, and just building a rapport, a relationship, and loyalty amongst the whole group of people. So that's the truth. And Carrie Engel's kind of on that path of being the next Tracy McCreary, somebody that when it's her time, there's going to be all kinds of people you won't even expect step up to help her, because she really has put together a very impressive House career. Ashley Awning, I love talking to Ashley because Ashley's knocking on doors like all the time. So she actually has some feedback from actual real people. So it's fun to hear from her. I think you're going to like the show. Lincoln Hupp, the Good Opinion Maker panel, Sunday this week in Missouri Politics, and we will see you back here next week for this TWMP Midweek Update, brought to you by the Marriott Courtyard. Hat tip to Erica Leonard, the Marv event there last night. Could not have been better, more fun. It was outstanding. The Marriott, for your event, you cannot go wrong. You can go wrong if you don't go to the Marriott. Then you're going wrong. Steiny Knowledge will not steer you wrong. The fact of the matter is, go to the Courtyard by Marriott, or don't go at all. See you Sunday on television. Thanks a lot.